shy person, and there's no way I will get away with telling people I shy. Nobody will ever believe that.
You go all day, I get it from you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you. You give me a reason to jump for joy. You give me a reason to live. Hey, you give me the vibe and keep me alive. Make everything right. Yeah, you. It's you got me feeling to jump around. You make me feel to go on and on. Say through every season, you are the reason. Yeah, you. When I'm gone.
Okay, so folks, thank you so much for joining me this Sunday evening. I tell you already, it's going to be very laid back, very freewheeling. Hi Beach, hi Janice, hi Stacy, Sampa Scott, nice to see you guys here. I feel like between Lasana on Friday and that breakdown and takedown of Urvashi yesterday evening, I am so tired, so exhausted, like mentally out of it. But I did want to have a conversation with some guys this afternoon because a couple of weeks ago, we talked to women, to single mothers, single ladies, and then I really wanted to do a show talking to men, and Father's Day was coming up, and I thought today was a great day to sit down and talk to men about their lives, their issues, what it's like to be raising children as a single parent, what it's like to be a son. And I have hopefully a very special guest coming in towards the end of the hour. I had to beg and plead to be able to get this special guest, a special dad, to come on at the end of the hour. So happy Father's Day to all of the fathers that are in the audience, and happy Father's Day to at least one of my guests on the program this evening. So let me bring on my first guest and my second guest. These two gentlemen are going to be here with me for the majority of the hour. It'll be Antonio Ross. Hi Ross, how you doing?
Hi, my friend. Good afternoon. Gentlemen first, as it's Father's Day, and ladies second.
We could do that. We could do gentlemen first, and
it's only for one day. All you control the next 300 and how much other days?
No, I have expert at. I ain't even gonna argue with you about what we control and don't control. I am certainly not going to be arguing at all about what I control, because I know me. I control my space, and we in my space right about now. Hi, Jamil. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you all?
We are fine. Let me introduce you to the audience properly. So everybody knows my friend Antonio Ross. I've had Ross here on a number of occasions. We've talked about energy sector issues. We've talked about finance issues. We talked about susu issues. You remember that, Ross? What has happened to this susu? Line 13 still holding straight. And remember how much licks and pong we get when we talked about the susu, Ross?
And we were right.
It was a Ponzi scheme.
We were right. We were right even down to the month it was going to crash.
Yes, exactly. Because you named it. You called it. You called it from the jump. You said by this point it is going to crash. You had even said that you were upset that the police had gotten involved, because if the police had not gotten involved, it would have died on its own and there would be no need for an investigation at all. And so said, so done. You were absolutely right. You called it. So the gentleman to my right, I real bad with directions, folks. So calling left and right has had to touch a shoulder every single time. So the gentleman to my right is J Revolution. Many of you would know him as a bit of a comedian. He does videography work, etc., etc. Yeah, a bit of a comedian. All right.
I wouldn't put it on my resume.
You wouldn't put it on? Nah, you should put it on your resume. You see that video you did of Rameshan, the lawyer? I ain't gonna lie. Listen, I laughed myself into a coma with that one. It was so good. It was so good.
Thank you. To this day,
yeah.
People still.
Yeah, no, because it was an amazing parody. It was an amazing parody, and the wig was spot on.
Sans wig today.
Sans wig today. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you all for agreeing to come on here and have the kind of conversation we're going to have, because I'm going to dig up in all of your business. I am going to be asking questions as a female, I only vexed that my hair, it ain't blonde right now, but I really couldn't continue to maintain the blonde in the middle of a lockdown. So it's gone back to dark roots because I'd have been telling you, I'm going to ask some blonde questions this evening.
Right.
But I feel like there are things that women want to know about men and masculinity. And today's a good day to delve into it, to get into it. So,
Okay.
Ross, we're going to start with you first because I'm doing age before beauty, etc., etc., etc.
Let's go.
Right, let's go.
Right.
Ross, I know you to be from my arrow. And to the best of my knowledge, you first grew up in a home with your mom, right? Am I correct?
Correct.
Right. So single parent home. So the first question I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
Right. The first question I want to ask is, what was that like growing up in a single parent home?
Well, first of all, as it's Father's Day, I wanna say two little brief words. I want the audience to kind of excuse my language today because I'm gonna not speak proper English as if I'm in the office because
No,
I'm
that's
not.
fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Right?
That's fine.
But I wanna quote the words of the great Bungie Garlin. It's a man who like to wine, but they don't like to mind. Happy Father's Day, nothing. But on a more serious note, though, right? To all the sisters out there, single parenting and doing everything on their own, I would like to say, Happy Father's Day, nothing. You is not a father. Right. Let me answer your question now.
Why is that your position? I genuinely want to know because you know there are some women who take the Happy Father's Day greeting. So I want to know why is that your position?
Well, if somebody give you a greeting, you take it. You know, custom, but same time.
Right? Why do you say Happy Father's Day? Nothing.
I don't want us to run down any deliberately, but I'll say this. Me,
Yeah.
I'm a father, but I would not take Happy Mother's Day. And
Right.
I do everything.
Right.
Because I'm not a mother.
Right. Right.
So
in your mind,
right.
the roles are distinct, even though you might be nurturing or parenting in a very comprehensive way. You don't see yourself as a mothering parent.
No, I am a parent,
Okay.
but I happen to be the male parent.
Gotcha. All right. We're
So-
going to get into that. So we're going to start first with
Right.
your life, your experience as the son within a household of a single parent. And that single parent would have been female, right? It would have been a female single parent.
Right. 7 children. I am the second. In a 1-bedroom with a sponge on the floor with everybody on that one sponge seat, sleeping lengthways. So with a parent who hustling, meaning back then working in a restaurant, that kind of thing. And whatever she make in the restaurant is what she make. And the father's not around, just single parent all the way up to a point. But yes, growing up in the countryside, however, made single parenting, the experience as a youth, growing up in a single parent home a little bit different because it have grandparents and uncles and aunts and grandmother, and plus you're living in the country, so it have all kind of different fruits to eat, so food and gardening, vegetables and whether it be yam and dasheen and cassava and peas and corn, things were readily available. And living in Miari, you're sure you're getting fish, you're sure you're getting crab. It is what it is. Breadfruit in abundance, pick it off a tree, you don't have to go buy it. You know, so it wasn't, in hindsight, it wasn't as bad as at the time I would have probably felt it was at some point.
Right. And you were in that house for how long? How long did you live in that home for? And what was the experience like? And I'm asking you to talk about it in retrospect, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And now as a grown man thinking back on the experience of your boyhood in that home space.
In retrospect, it was not as, I don't even want to say it was not as bad, because it probably was. There's parts of it where, especially when you're single parenting, and again, as I might be speaking from looking at it from a mother's perspective sometimes, right? You're single parenting and you have a miserable son. And licks have to share. I might find from where I was sitting at the point in time that I may have been abused. From my mother's perspective, form discipline. So it rubbed me the way to the point where when I got to the age of, I think it was 12, I decided, which is, we could call it runaway, but I decided to go live by my grandmother in Rio Claro, which is incidentally my father's mother.
Right.
So that was the first proper introduction into my father's household without never moving into my father's household.
So
I never lived with my dad, ever.
you were 11 or 12 when you was that the first time you met your father, or you'd met your father before that?
No, 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 no. My recollection of meeting my father is on Navet Road in San Fernando with a yellow Toyota Corolla at the age of about 7, where he pulled up to drop off a check, right? And my mother got the check and Lego some cussing tail, because my mother is them kind of ladies and them who say, yeah, oh, you so and so, mommy, don't come around here, right? And she run you like dog. At the end of the day, those are the children who were suffering, which is me and my siblings and them. And my father, so we were at the bottom of the rung, and my father was way up on the top, to put things quite bluntly.
In terms of
right? And my father,
economics?
yeah, economics. Yeah. My father was at the point in time, 1980s, early 80s. He would have been probably already a manager in an oil company in Texaco.
Right.
So that was, I was about 7 years old. I specifically remember that would have been I would have been in about Form 3. Standard 3. So that would have been close to the early 80s. And that's my first recollection of my dad. And then we moved from Navet Road and we go on in the Squatters and Enterprise to live. At this point, we living in Shogunas. You have to remember too, when you look at it from where Trinidad was in the early 1980s, you had house phone and cell phone was not yet invented, neither was the internet. So if you left San Fernando and gone Shogunas to live, nobody really know you moved. Except that I had an aunt living in Shogunas who saw my mother and called her sister, who tell my father that we living in Shogunas now. And that's how people used to find people and connect. And then after living in Shogunas for 2 years, we moved back to Miara in 1984.
Right.
I went to Miara Government School, and again, so I'm back in Miara, in the vicinity of where both of my grandparents are and my father's family, in the zone. And at this time, I'm going to St. Stephen's. It so happened that Clifton Dakota was the principal of St. Stephen's. And I was given so much trouble in school at that point, and my mother came to the school. And when Clifton Dakota said, boy, this is a real bright boy, how we giving so much trouble, how it is, always seeing so much trouble, etc., etc. And my mother tell him, well, that is Vernon Gilbert's son. And then Mr. Dakota was stunned, because it so happened incidentally, my father was his roommate at the University of the West Indies.
Oh, so they knew each other.
Correct. And that is how my father reconnected with me.
Okay, so Clifton Dakota got your dad back into your life.
Correct.
All right, and when that happened, what was the relationship like? What did what went on at that point?
Well, at that point in time, Pops used to be driving a Commodore, a burgundy color Commodore, and he would come up country because his family also lived close to my family. Meaning, if you live in Rio Claro, Union Village, Miari, you're more or less in the same bowl, right? And he would come up to visit his mother, which is my grandmother. And then he'd come up to visit his brothers and sisters. And on the way, he would stop off with his partner, whichever brethren he was making the run with. And he'd come, he'd drop off some money, and it would keep going like that and going like that. And that's, at this point, I was in Form 2. So no big conversation, because I still a little boy.
Right.
And we ain't really going on no long drives, but he bring in the brethren and they saying hello, and he drop off the little money, we small talk for 5-10 minutes, and he pump.
When did a relationship, I guess a deeper, more meaningful relationship begin to develop between the two of you?
No. So at the point in time where things wasn't going too bright with my mother, when I felt that discipline was really feeling like abuse, I decided to leave home, aka run away, and I go in my grandmother, which is my father's mother, in Hibiscus Arch Road in Rio Claro to live. And I lived there for about a year, but I had an uncle there who was a little bit lackadaisical now. You carry on all kind of beat that you're supposed to go on in the eyes of my father. So daddy say, you're all going. And I moved me from there. He moved me to my next aunt in Grand Street in Rio Claro. So I ended up living by my aunt in Grand Street in Rio Claro. And at this point, I am now more informed, 3 and 4. So I'm a little bit older. And daddy would normally come up the road on average every fortnight on a weekend. He'd come up to drop money. He'll come to visit his other brothers and sisters and me, and he'll pick me up. Now he's picking me up in the car and we ride in. It so happened that we had some commonalities. I used to read every single newspaper every single day, and he did exactly the same thing in his home in Grove Park in Oropouche. So when he came up the road, we had everything in the newspaper to talk about, whether it be politics, whether it be about education, whether it be about the state of the economy, the country. And so this is me at the age of 15 having these type of conversations on these long drives. And really and truly, that's all we ever talked about. We never really spoke about things that...
You didn't talk about feelings.
Nah, we're not in our feelings business.
Did you
and
talk?
My father
did
was
you talk
never
about
a big feelings man?
Right. And did you ever ask him questions about why he wasn't with your mother, why he wasn't around in any regular way? Did you all have those kinds of conversations?
Nah, you can't really have them kind of conversation with my father, you know.
Why
My
not?
father not on them scenes. No, my father not on them scenes. My father is everybody who know my dad, and which is plenty people, because later on he became the GM of Petrotrit and leader of the opposition in the Senate as well under the PNM.
Right.
So people will tell you straight up like a serious man. Straight. Serious like a heart attack. Hardly ever you'll get him to smile, you'll get him to grin once in a while, but it's always a serious conversation about something serious and never knows it a dotish talk with he. But I like the conversation that we had because I like that type of conversation too.
Right.
But we never deal with feelings, and I guess everything out and talk to your partners and talk to this one and pull from his brothers, and because my dad came from a large family, 13 brothers and sisters. My dad was the eldest.
Okay.
So my dad was also like, okay, to get a feeling as to who my dad was is my grandmother, when she had a problem with all the other 12 children,
Yeah.
she could say, when Vernon come, I go tell him about all you. He is the brother, he's not the father.
But he ended up kind of functioning in the role of like the man of the house.
Well, he was not in the house, but my dad, because of his status and the finance that came with that status, was able to provide for all his brothers and sisters and send everybody to do the degree, send everybody overseas and that sort of thing.
Did your father have other children beside yourself?
Yes, 5.
Okay. All of them.
I was my father's outside child. Let me use that word because people like to use this outside child thing.
Right.
Right? And I was number 1, 2. I was number 3 on the list.
You were the third child of his children.
Yeah, but he also had another outside child too. 3 of us born in December. So
okay. And was that ever problematic for you at all, the whole outside child thing?
What? Actually, honestly, never, because I like Rab. So yeah, so if you come by me with outside child talk, I have real talk to you, Jen. So it was never a problem for me.
It never bothered
It was
you.
it was a problem for other people.
Okay, all right.
Not me.
Let me bring.
But again, I want to put things in perspective too, because part of the outside child thing was problematic for others because my father neglected to tell his wife that he had another child.
Okay. So the wife didn't know about the other relationships.
No, she found out after my father passed away.
Okay.
Now I am already a 30-year-old man.
Right.
And strange enough, though, his children, which is my brothers and sisters, they knew because so he does run his business.
Right. So the children knew, but the wife didn't know.
No.
Did you ever interact with your siblings at all when you were a child?
Child, no, but when I was going to St. Stephen's College, my sister came to St. Stephen's to repeat, and then later on my brother did.
Okay. So you met them there?
And so I knew all of them. Out of the 5, I was close with actually all. Yeah, I was close with all of them long before.
Okay. And when you eventually met his wife, after the funeral or around the time of the funeral, what was that like?
It wasn't a good situation at all. because she was teaching in a primary school in Oropuch, and it so happened I had purchased a Mazda 626 silver PAY 7144 from my father, and we never transferred it. But so I had to get the vehicle transferred. So I had to go to meet her. So here I am with my two little bank slips. Thank God I kept the bank slip for she not to feel that my father gave me no car. Right? I kept the two bank slips and I went up to the school to get her to make arrangement to have the car transferred now. And it wasn't a good vibe because within that time and now she feeling I come in to fight for property now. When I had my own. But she didn't know that. But so it was bitter and acrimonious from there on out until she kind of simmered down like Baji.
Okay. All right. Let me bring Jamil in. Jamil.
Yes. You hearing me, right?
Yes, I'm hearing you fine. Absolutely fine. So tell me what's your I guess parenting situation like? What sort of home did you grow up in? What was your experience of boyhood?
Okay. Well, like Mr. Ross over there, I also grew up in a single parent home. The female parent, my mother, being the single parent. I grew up in Laventille, right? And it was about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of us in the house.
Right.
But luckily we had 3 bedrooms. However, there was 3 small bedrooms and I shared a room with my mother. So for a lot of my childhood into
Where did you fall? Were you the eldest?
no, I was my mom's only child. However, my dad, just like Mr. Ross again, had other children.
Okay.
So I would have been the second of 4.
Right.
Right. And so growing up, a lot of the experiences that I went through, I couldn't keep anything from my mother. Because again, we slept in the same bed. There is no way I could come to bed and hide anything. Like the one time I actually got something past my mother took absolute skill, control, patience, and eventually she would still get it out.
Okay.
Right. So that developed a very, very deep relationship with my mother. For the most part, when I think about my relationship with my father, I only knew him over the phone.
Okay.
I did not see my father for the first time until probably maybe 18, 19, 20, somewhere around there.
When you were an adult?
Correct. When I first saw my father, I was already old enough to be locked up as an adult.
Was he living in Trinidad or living elsewhere?
No, he's living in Canada.
Okay.
Right. So the thing with my relationship with my father, I had some sort of a reward-based relationship with him. And when I say that, I mean my mom would simply send him. I just remember my mom sending him my report card. Is A+ because I was a straight A student, and I would get stuff.
Okay.
Right. Despite the situation not being the most fortunate in the world, my dad would have sent me things like a Super Nintendo and stuff like that. So, and I wouldn't lie, video games formed a very crucial part of my thinking processes, my thought processes, and how I would perceive the world. Video games played a very important part. So in a sense, I have to thank my dad for that. But other than that, it was mostly phone and that kind of reward-based trade-off I had with my dad. That's the relationship I had with him for the most part.
Okay, so let me ask you this: that phone parenting relationship. How often did you talk to him?
I wouldn't claim to remember because.
You there, Jay? Oh, it might be. I wonder if it's my data that's playing the fool. Everybody's there? I think my data was playing the fool for a little bit. Oh my goodness. Just now. I may have to call those guys back in. I'm going to have to call those guys back into the studio because my data dipped. Thank you so much, Flo. Thank you for that piece of foolishness that you just did there. Hi. Sorry about that. I think, right. My data dipped. You guys are not at fault. My data dipped.
Oh.
So, Jay, you were saying to me that you will not pretend that you remembered exactly how often you spoke to your dad.
Right. Okay. So like I said, I would remember that when there was some sort of major life event, at least in the capacity of whatever a small child would experience, whether it be a spelling bee, some kind of reading competition, I would speak to him.
Yeah.
And I know that he would say how it was you did well. Yeah, dad, I did well. You'd probably, he would, I remember he would have, if my aunts or anybody was in the vicinity, right? He would tell him, "Hey, look, yeah, my son doing well. I'm talking to him on the phone now." I remember that. And then if I did well of whatever it was, he would say, "Okay, cool, I'll send something for you."
Right.
Right?
But if you didn't
And
do well, you
but and that's the thing. I it's not to not to put myself on a pedestal or anything, but I don't remember not doing well. But it was never for the sake of getting stuff. It was more so because of my mother. My mother would have paid very close attention to how I would have done in school. And after a while, she kind of just left it up. And I really did not ever want to disappoint my mother. I had this whole straight A thing going, and I was like, okay, cool. I remember the first time I got a B plus, I was like distraught. And so, like I said, that reward system kind of situation is really the only thing I remember having any kind of relationship with my dad. It was that.
right.
Right? How you're going, like random calls to check up on me. I can't remember those specifically.
Right.
Right? And maybe I didn't, and maybe if it did happen, perhaps I didn't pay attention because again, I don't even have a face. I have pictures,
Yeah.
but I don't have a face to put to the person who I'm talking to. So maybe if that did happen, it did not leave much of an impact.
Right. So you said you met him when you were an adult, like 18,
Correct.
19,
Yeah.
somewhere thereabouts. So your teen years, right? When you're coming into puberty and adolescence and stuff, who were you talking about those experiences with? And Ross, I'm gonna come and ask you that just now. Eh?
Well, it would have, like I said, I couldn't hide much from my mother, so it would have been her. However, in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
right, there would have been male influences, some positive, some a little negative, but I would have always ran things by them. But the thing is, I had a particular image in my neighborhood. They used to call me Steve, as in Steve Urkel,
Oh my
because
word.
because I did have glasses in standard 4 and everybody knew I was smart. I used to kind of figure out everybody's problems.
And your
People
pants
are-
used to be where, Jamil, like up and no,
No,
right?
no, no.
Okay.
My pants was fine. But there were times I would admit I would have put my shirt in my pants if I was going out the road because I thought like that was proper or whatever. Right? So Steve, as in Steve Urkel, was my nickname. So I would have solved everybody's problems. If they had homework, I'd help them with it, those sorts of things. And if they want to play video games, they would come by me because I was the guy with the video game system, right?
Right.
In an otherwise tricky situation of living. But I would talk to them sometimes, and they would sometimes give me good advice or give me bad advice. But somehow I was able to filter it out. I'm not too sure why, but I was able to filter out what was useful and what was useless. And I'm later down, closer to my 17, 18, I picked up martial arts. Well, I was doing martial arts for quite some time, as in karate and stuff. But I was just because my uncle was a sensei, etc. in Purple Dragon. But me actually making a conscious choice to choose the martial arts that I want to do. My teacher then, he passed away, so God rest his soul. He was the person who became the father figure in my life. It was very, very important to me at that point, and he was responsible for changing a lot of my perspectives through his advice, through the training, the discipline, etc. And several other figures to it that I would admit. One of my first bosses, Clint Williams, he was a major mentor in my life. Another mentor of mine named Doug. I had a few father figures, and those were the people I would have kind of gotten advice from, because there was a point where I did realize that my mother would have hit a wall with what she could have told me and the impact that it would have had on me.
Right.
Because I would notice that if a man would relay his experience on how he would relate, it would identify with what I too would have been experiencing versus, what my mother would say. Now, all respect to my mother, she did an absolutely wonderful job in my opinion, but there is a wall, which is why what Mr. Ross said is important, where this whole happy Father's Day to the mothers out there, while respectfully you can't take the compliment, there is a wall that you hit when it comes to raising a son into raising a man. I think there is a wall.
Can you elaborate on what you think that wall is?
Well, I think how so it comes down to masculinity and how men are treated in society. If I am relaying an experience to my mother, she would probably not understand why I might have gotten upset, why maybe my ego might have been bruised, why I would have preferred a situation to go my way. And a lot of times my mother would have just said, well, I don't really think that's a problem. it's whatever, versus the men in my life would have said, listen, here's what I had to do in that situation. You had to play it cool. You can't show no emotion on your face. You can't do this and that. Like, again, some pieces of advice are good, some pieces of advice are bad. But I do think that a woman's perspective and a man's perspective is completely different, right? And I remember a clinical piece of advice that my martial arts teacher told me. He said, when your sword go forth, hold your anger, and when your anger go forth, hold your sword. And he was just telling me that, listen, if you know you're going to get upset in a situation, it's not the time to fight.
Right.
But I am talking to a situation with my mother, and my mother would say something like, yeah, well, if you're feeling a particular way, you know what I mean? You just had to express it. You can't bottle it in. You can't do X, Y, and Z. But I know that sometimes as a man, if you lose control, you might be perceived as dangerous in a situation.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
especially as a black
that's
male,
a good example.
Exactly. Especially as a black male, let's not downplay that. Ross,
Exactly.
I wanna pull you in here. When you were growing up, because you didn't live with your father at any point in time, and you moved from by your mom, you went to your aunt and uncle. Was your aunt and uncle? Am I correct?
Yes.
Right. Did you hit a point where you felt that you needed your father in your life and wanted more interaction with your father in your life?
Point blank, no. I'll tell you why. I was always a little bit different. Even at the point in time when I was growing up in Mayara with only my mother in Church Road on the beach, I used to be around some solid men. The little difference, I'll name one of the men, Charlie Elephant Walk Stewart. That was one of my people. At the time, he had owned Queen Beach and Brentford Haven Hotel, and I used to spend a lot of times there. And then who eventually became my mentor and then my son's godfather, Clive Preacherman Brand, who used to work for him. Different characters in a different portion of society. But then when I moved to by my grandmother, I was living with my uncle, who was also there, Emmanuel Congreen Gilbert. Rest in peace, because he died this year. And then when I moved from there and I went by my other aunt, it was teacher Carl Humphrey, was a teacher. So, and then going to St. Stephen's and the relationship that I had developed with my principal, Mr. Dikoto, everybody used to say, "You're the principal's son." Again, always had male figures in my life, and the nature of the conversation I would keep was always a sort of an intellectual type of conversation. So, and them older men had always liked that about me. So there was no shortage of male figures in my life, and my father was just an extension of that. When he come up the road and I jump in the car, we making a turn. It's the same type of conversation again. And similar to what Jay said a while ago, the relationship that I had with my father was an intellectual one. It was about discussing politics, discussing events, and the like. It wasn't based on no measure of emotion about nothing. So,
how has that shaped your fathering and your approach to fathering? Because you are now the father of at least a son and a daughter. Am I correct?
don't try them kind of thing now. You always have one.
I just making
You know,
sure.
no. Now I know them papi show scenes today. Girl.
No.
It's only 2 3 and I no, you know it's 2 3 and I have, but you trying to frame it in a kind of way like you going and get exposed to them. No, I have 2 children. My son is 18 and my daughter is 16. Full
Right.
stop. Me, I know set a train out a road.
And good. I'm not trying to imply that you have a set of children out the road. I just wanted to be absolutely certain, because sometimes you'll be talking about the son and the son wearing your clothes, and I'm like, is more than one son Ross have? How many sons harassing you so? Because that one son seems like he's quite a handful. So how has your experience with your parent and I guess the extended parenting situation, because what you're kind of describing there for me, it sounds like a kind of extended family parenting situation with all of those men back in Mayaro who kind of took you under their wing and mentored you. How has that impacted on your approach to parenting as an adult?
You know what they say, it takes a village. But not in the true sense of a village, but different people with different inputs and living in different environments and the input from those environments. Now, the immediate environment obviously is the one in the home. That's the one that should be most impactful is not always so, because there's only 24 hours in a day, and it's what you do in that 24 hours and how long you do it for is what really, in my opinion, will shape you to some extent. So, in the case of the relationship with my mother, and having gone through where she catching hell, she minding a set of children, I don't know already not to make no set of children that going and catch hell. I also know that yes, she's emotional, but that emotion converts into abuse when she get upset because she can't control she emotion, and you might start giving genuine correction licks and it will turn into abuse because you can't control yourself as a parent. So now I kind of learning from that, I don't really beat my children. I beat my son probably about 4 times. I using the word beat, right? Deliberately, because that's what we Caribbean people understand. But I just spend real plenty time talking, real talking. When you come home in the evening time, I say, come, let me see your eyes, let me see if your pupils dilated. You smoke today, you drink, let me see if you're high stepping. And that's why I just operate with my son. With my daughter, I just take a slightly softer approach because she going and break down and crack like an egg, right?
Why? Tell me why. Why you say that?
Well, I want to cast no aspersion, but she's more female-like and he's more male-like. He could take more jamming, she can't take no set of jamming.
Okay, I never thought about it that way. I would always think
Yeah,
that
man.
girls could take more jamming than boys. Honestly, that's how I got.
She ain't taking no jamming. Now she also less accustomed to me than him.
Why is that?
He's he's been with me as a single parent since 2014. Him and I alone, right? She has been with me full time as of only this year.
Okay.
But so I had to tread a little more lightly with she because she's not accustomed to my style and the rigid structure that I have set out, like if it's a army camp.
You don't
My
give
son,
the impression that you have a rigid structure, right? That's not the impression that you
nah,
give.
I have always had a rigid structure. I don't ever, you see, it's easy to judge this book by the cover because even growing up, people feel I was a drug dealer. Let me be on the real, right? Meanwhile, I was passing all my exams, the brightest boy in the people's school, getting prizes in chemistry for CXC in St. Stephen's College. I was a school valedictorian at one point, going on to university, do my little degree, liming like normal. People thought I wasn't going to university. They thought all I saw was lime, wear gold, play card, dance, party, and that's it. But no, I was doing my little degree. And even after that, I had a good job in the oil and gas for over 28 years. So even today, I still flex a certain type of way when I'm not working. And people still get confused with that. They go see the type of people that's lying with the places that us go. So I always like to have a certain amount of balance between the bottom level of society, which is where my mother was and where I grew up, and the top level where my father is. Put on a jacket, put on a tie, go to a meeting with a couple of ministers, flip it off and go down and line down in Celox down in the ghetto. And that has always been natural for me. So I parent the same way too. I allow my children to do certain things, but at the end of the day, I understand what the goal is. The goal at the end of the day for children and for little black boys and girls is to get an education. Like, we don't lose sight of that goal.
Why do you say education? Why are you talking about education as being important? And I'll tell you why I'm asking that. I've taught for since the age of 24 to now. So that's a good 20 years I've been teaching. And there are lots of children that genuinely feel that an education really is not that important, that they're going to get through in life anyhow you take it. There's always the hustle, and they will be able to do the hustle and earn a living. So why are you saying education?
I used to hustle too, and I could still hustle. And I just hustle still, same time, but they're all different kind of hustle. But hustle is hustle and business is business, and they're not the same, right? So if you want to hustle for the rest of your life, then kudos to you if that's what you feel good for you. But I'll still say this, and I don't want us to mix up the word education and feel is only books, right? Because being out there on the street and understanding the way how things run is also just as important. To the extent that education could also mean a trade. It doesn't mean books, right? So
I'm not thinking about it in terms of books.
Yeah.
Because
I want to clarify.
Good, because I'm a huge proponent of technical vocational skills. Huge proponent of technical vocational skills.
But at the end of the day, I want to say this, and this will apply to anybody. If you start off in the bottom, right, and you want to go up to the top, you have to be able to understand how money does run in a capitalist society. And you have to figure out, okay, how my 24 hours could give me the most money. And it might mean having a trade and being able to make $300 a day in a construction type scenario and progress into supervisory. But then you'll never become a manager. Or you might start your own business and you're doing really good in your own business, but you really don't understand numbers. So your business is going on fail. So when I say education, even if you want to be a nail tech or you want to open a hair salon, you have to understand the natural progression and the ecosystem of your business. Even if you're doing hair, you have to understand hair does go with nails, nails does go with spa, spa does go with pedicure. And you could sell weave too, and you could upgrade your business and you could move up. But to do that,
And you could
need
create a
some
line of
measure.
products and etc.
Correct.
etc. etc.
Correct. You could
right?
make soap. You could do all kind of different things. But to do all of that, you have to have some measure education to be able to get there. So when you're sitting down and crying and saying, pour me one, and I can't make it and I ain't making it, you have to also understand that your background and your foundation in terms of education is insufficient to get you there, and you probably need to retool.
Okay, gotcha.
And
Now
I will say this, and I'm going to say this last piece. I have a first degree. I have a degree in physics. Am I satisfied? No. I reflected on that even up to today. And if I had to do it all over again, I would have done my master's degree immediately and probably even had a PhD by now, because I was probably one of the sharpest tools in the shed at the
what
point
would you
in
have
time.
done? What would you have done the masters in?
Well, first of all, I would not have done my degree at the University of the West Indies.
Where would you have done it?
I would have gone to the States and write the people SAT exam and gotten a scholarship.
Okay. And then
because I was that good.
And then do
And
a
then I would have
master.
done
A master's in what?
I didn't know what I was going to do it in. I probably would have been a lawyer, because I was always a bush lawyer too now.
Okay, I hear you.
But even when I went into UE, I didn't know what I was doing. I just went because
that was the thing to do. That's what you did. You went from okay.
No, let me tell you this. My father is a teacher man of fish versus give a man a fish fella, and you hear that quote hole in your head, beating in your head. And my father was a petroleum engineer. And my father felt that his children, because I was bright, could I do way better than him.
Okay.
I wasn't easy. I was good. And behind his back, I went and signed up to go UE. At the time, I was working in Trintopec in Galeota, 1992. Signed up to go UE. Corpus Christi, the Thursday, I finished my last A-level exam. Sorry, CXC exam. No, A-level exam. And the Friday, I went for a job interview in Trintopec, and I got a job in Trintopec Galeota the Monday. $3,857 a week as a clerical worker too. At that point in time, the University of the West Indies semester fees was $3,600. So I was able to pay for my first year UE with 1 week's salary.
Wow. Wow.
And I signed up to go UE and call my father and say, Daddy, I need money. So this is September now, right? I need money. And you walk in, what you want money for? I said, Daddy, I'm in UE. You're in what? What are you doing there? I said, well, I come in UE. What you sign up to do on that side, that man costs even more. Because my father felt that I should have been a doctor or a lawyer.
I'm stunned that you didn't go and do engineering, though. I'm really surprised that you didn't do engineering.
Well, so my father had already set the base, He was an engineer.
Okay. I
can't be at the same level as he. I had to be better than he as far as he concerned.
And you decided that you were going to go the route of physics. Okay. I want to
No, not Sci, which is even below.
Let me pull Jay in here, because I know that Jay is an entrepreneur. So Jay, the first question I want to ask is this. I want to go back to that first meeting with your dad. What was that like? And then, of course, where and how did you get the impetus to become a businessman?
Okay. So I had to pick up my dad in the airport, and it was a bit of a surprise because I was not told that he was coming until, very close to his arrival.
Okay.
So I picked him up, and well, my personality is very tempered. I don't really get phased and panicky or anything like that. So when I met him, I just say, hey, Dad, I gave him a hug. Might have been a little bit awkward for him, but I was cool with it. And driving down the road with him, the first thing I noticed about him is that man, he had so much things to say about Trinidad because he was living in Canada for most of his adult life. And he was like, wait, boy, what's going on in this country? He starts to talk about all the things he remembered, this and that, how many problems it had. And I'm like, wow, my dad complains a lot. We not the same in that at all, because I have always been the type of person to make the best of whatever situation I had. Again, I didn't come from no big sum money or anything like that. So I was always pretty content with what was going on around me. Right. But yeah, complaining a lot. And, you know, I'm driving at my normal speed, not necessarily slowest. And he'll be like, why these people driving on the road? They're going crazy. What's going on? And complain. And it's a bit on edge, a bit nervy. And I'm like, we're not liking this sense at all. However, he's from Carnage, right? So he does have serious street smarts, knows a lot of people around the area. And he took me to his house in Carnage, which he owned. And he started to look around and analyze. And he has this really keen eye for detail and this spatial recognition that he could just look at something and say that might be 2 inches, that might be 6 inches. Very persistent. And that's when I realized that's what I got from my dad.
Right.
That persistence and slight arrogance as well. I would definitely say that. Say I could see. So I was really just observing him, because I remember reading something about DNA, how personality traits can pass through DNA. So I was always interested to know, because I'm very deep into philosophy and just, I guess, literature on a whole. And while my mother was very good with numbers, she had a serious green thumb, there wasn't much people in my household that was really into philosophy or any kind of deep thought. So I wondered if I got that from him. Turns out I did not. But I was observing to see if that was the case, right? So my first meeting with him, it's just me observing him, everything that he did, purely because it wasn't a long visit as well. It's probably a week, if so much. Right?
Oh, just a week.
Yeah, it wasn't very long.
Okay.
It wasn't a very long visit.
All right. So let me follow up here. That relationship with your father, has it ever expanded beyond what you've described there with, you know, telephone and that short visit? Has it ever expanded beyond that?
Not really, but I would say that I have grown to understand who he is and why he would have done some of the things he done. And that's because I see the similarities between him and I. And I mean, he's my father, so whatever choices he made and why he decided to leave is, I give that to him. That's your choice, that's your life. I made a personal vow that when I do become a father, that I would not put myself in that situation. Easier said than done, you know what I mean? I would like to ideally be with the right woman who I could parent a child with and live the standard nuclear family life.
Why the standard nuclear family life?
I guess that's just what. I would say this, and this might segue into the entrepreneur talk. But I have lived a life from since I was young of uncertainty.
Okay.
Being from the neighborhood I was from there, and I hope my mother's not watching this, because the kind of stories that I have growing up in Laventille, serious near-death experiences, just from being at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
Moving all the way up until entrepreneurship, which is also an ocean of uncertainty. Uncharted land. No matter how many people do it before you, no matter how many grades you study, no matter how many books you read, it's always some kind of uncharted territory. There are best practices. So I've lived a life of uncertainty. So when it comes to structure in that part of my life, I would really like it. Okay. I could take the risk with the businesses and all these different things. So take some calculated risks. Try a new product. If it don't work, try to develop an app. If it doesn't work, fine. But that whole love life, supportive partner kind of thing, I really, really want that to be structured. I could do without the uncertainty in that field.
Right.
That's about it. Nothing too deeper than that.
No, my other guest just called in. Just hold on a second and I'll bring you on screen in a little bit, all right?
My mother is watching.
Your mom is watching? Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, but Jay, it begs this question. What kind of relationship are you looking for? Because I have to ask those questions now. I mean, it gives me the opportunity to start to ask you all about things like that. What are you looking for in relationships as a man?
It's a good question. Well, first and foremost, I definitely need to be able to relate which is the root word of relationship, right? Relate. The lady that I choose needs to have some level of intellect. I need to have stimulating conversations. I need to be able to express, I guess, radical thought and it be taken into a realm of curious debate rather than aggressive argument. I also need somebody who's not really a complainer.
Right.
Right. I remember a very distinct situation in my life that gave me that perspective where I was heading to the beach with a young woman at the time. She's probably not on this live. That's good. And it was raining and she's complaining about the rain. And in my mind, I am not in control of the rain. Why are you upset with me? Because the rain is falling. And I'm like, nah, I need to be with somebody who can make the best of any situation.
Right.
Because that's how I live.
Right.
Spontaneity. Even though I'm very measured and I would have a bunch of ideas in the back of my head, spontaneity is a big thing for me. And in general, I would say that somebody who is dedicated to also themselves. Because I do believe that you improving on yourself consistently as an individual does lead to better service in a relationship, because it is two individuals that are coming together.
Yeah.
So I need to see a woman who is very confident in who she is, who she understands who she is, so that she doesn't enter this relationship and then starts to figure out, okay, well, I didn't realize this about myself, and that is leading me into some problems that I can't possibly deal with.
So essentially somebody who is self-aware and then willing to do the work to continue
Correct.
to build self-awareness. I
Correct.
get you.
Because the self is not static, right? It's
No.
constantly evolving. It's constantly developing.
Everybody's personality, as a person, you're constantly evolving, you're constantly learning, you're constantly changing. Ross, let me ask you your business, because this is a question I don't think I have ever asked you in the entire time I have known you. Ross, you in a relationship?
Miss Lady. Miss Fiona. I have a best slimmers, we'll get tired out here,
I did not know that. So then tell me,
man.
in looking for, in finding a companion, as a man, what have you looked for?
Well, they say man cannot live by bread alone, so there's no way I would be single.
I hear that.
Right? I mean, in terms of looking for, I's a real strange fella too. I complicated in some aspects of my life, but in some like that, I'm very simple. I know I could be a pain in the ASS. I know that because of the way my brain is designed, right? And I really need always somebody with patience, Jed.
Right.
Just like how my mother had to have patience, that woman had to always have patience. And at the same time, I need emotional support. It come like, which is the weirdest thing, it come like almost a mother all over again.
Okay. Why?
And
Why do you want a mother all over again? And after you've answered that
No,
question, I'm going to bring
not-
on my secret guest, my very special
I'm not
guest.
saying want. As I said, it feels like.
Well,
Because I need somebody who's patient.
Don't duck it.
I
Don't
need that
duck it.
emotional
No, don't
support.
duck it. Don't duck
No,
it.
don't
Don't
do
duck
that.
it. Don't duck
Nah.
it. Don't duck it. Because you're saying you want a nurturing person, right?
Correct.
Somebody who is fulfilling a role that you perceive to be almost maternal. Why?
Because I want somebody to be the yin-yang side, because two Borat can't live in one home. Me and you can't be exactly the same way. How we gonna get a balance? How we gonna get an equilibrium? How we gonna be evenly yoked? If I doing the same thing, you doing the same thing, and I can't learn nothing from you, and you can't calm me down, and me and you hype together. That ain't making no sense.
Okay, so you want somebody to soothe your personality.
Correct. Somebody to give me some sense
To
of
balance. To
Because
balance.
I would tip the scale very heavily on one side, and I need somebody to bring me back to my little center now.
Okay. I'm going to share with my audience somebody that I don't really share with the world too much. But this is the first man in my life. All right. This is, I would easily say, the love of my life. And he knows this. So let me stop the blushing. Stop the blushing. So I want everybody to meet my father. This is my dad. Hi, Daddy. How you doing?
Hello.
Hi. You hearing me
Hi,
fine?
guys.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hi,
Yes,
Daddy.
yes, Rhoda.
Good
How
day,
are
good
you?
day.
How are you?
I am good. So happy
Ross, how
Father's.
are you, sir? Jay, how are you, brother?
I'm
It's really
good.
We
nice to
good, we
see you
good,
guys
man.
and hear you guys.
Hi.
Good, good. I'm happy. I'm happy to be here.
Happy Father's Day, Daddy.
Well, thank you, thank you.
Right. So, Daddy, I'm going to pull you into the conversation because I know you would have been hearing some of what the guys were talking about, right?
Yes,
Good. So, I am your eldest child. I'm the girl, I am the child that made you into a father. So, I want to ask you this. It's been 40 something years now that you've been a father. What are the key, most important things that you have learned from having to be my father?
wow, that's a big question.
It
There's no
is.
warm up here at all.
No
We
warm
haven't
up.
had a
No
warm.
warm up at all, Daddy. No warm up at all.
Um, the biggest lessons I have learned in being a father is it's the easiest thing to become a father. It's a lifelong taking on of challenges to be a father. As you told your audience, I am, and I was, and I'm the first man in your life. But there is an interesting dynamic about, and I always told you this, about the first day you enunciated daddy, it triggered something in my head. Something clicked. And it was the making, it was the beginning of the making of a father in real terms. And then, of course, for 44 years now, we've had this relationship. And seeing you grow, has been quite a wonderful thing. But sticking with the question and the answer, what goes into the phases from becoming a father to being a father is the simple, basic virtue of commitment. We've got to commit, make a commitment, and stay with the commitment of being the best father that we can be as we grow and mature. I like to think of fatherhood and fathering as the experience where we as the adult, we are learning to mature as we take responsibility with our children. Taking care of our children helps mature us as adults.
Okay.
That would be my short answer.
That's your short answer. Jay, I want to get back to you and the and entrepreneurship. You got
Right.
into running a business, to owning a business. And the
Correct.
interesting thing here, none of this being planned at all, is all three of you are entrepreneurs. So I get the opportunity to talk to all of you about entrepreneurship from the perspective of a man. So Jay, I'll start with you.
Okay. Well, one of my privileges, I would say, is that I had an extremely not had have an extremely supportive mother. Right, extremely supportive. She genuinely believed in me, so I kind of did whatever I want for a while. And it started from all the way from school. I was in cadets, I was in swimming, I was in basketball. I used to do all these different things, music, playing pan, captain of a school band in Form 5, all these different things. So my mother placed a particular trust in me to do well. But ironically, it was my uncle who was a catalyst for me getting into film, video. I remember he ordered some industrial size printer for his business. He lives in Arizona. He came to Trinidad and he gave me a camera that HP was just giving out with this printer. I didn't have a computer or no internet or anything back then. Luckily, my cousin had an editing program. So I took this camera and I just used to take random footage. And one day, my cousin just told me, hey, you could make movies on this software. And I sat there and I taught myself this software. And my friends used to get like real overjoyed when I would make these silly little mini movies about them. Right. And then coming up, I got into advertising. I was about, let's say, 19 years old, where I fudged a resume. Doesn't matter now because time passed, but I fudged a resume to get into an advertising agency. I talked about my skills in copywriting, my skills in presentation, and I did a video talking about how good I was. Little did I know the CEO was one of my friend's dad. And when he saw the resume, he was like, listen, I know this resume is not real, but it's impressive, so I'll give you a job. Couple years, right. So a couple years into doing that, I had already taught myself editing on video and whatnot. I started to go to SBCS, and this is where the hustling came into play. I didn't have equipment. So I was like, okay, I'm going to SBCS. They allow you to practice with their equipment on weekends. So what I did, every weekend I would sign out equipment saying that I need to practice my skills, and I would go do jobs with the people on them equipment. Right? That was the start. That was the kickstart. And I used to do a lot of weddings, etc. And back then, at least, it wasn't as accessible as it is now, where everybody has a camera. So you talking about me making maybe $5,000 on a weekend from a wedding. This is 1920.
Right.
So when that happened, I was like, okay, this is real. And I ended up leaving my job for
This is
some
what
terrible
year?
reason.
Can you remember what year it was? Around when?
Whenever I was 20. So maybe that
Oh,
was...
right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Right?
Because you said
And,
1920, and I thought to
not the year
myself,
1920.
yeah,
Between
because
those ages.
right. So between 19 and 20, gotcha.
Correct. And so I eventually, so in my agency at the time, right before I left, the Ministry of Energy was celebrating 100 years of oil and gas in Trinidad and Tobago. It was like a big celebration, and I won my company a huge contract because of a presentation I made to the then Minister Conrad Enel. And he was like, whoever that guy is, sign him. And my boss was like, wow, this is amazing. And he showed me the figure that the company was making from the business, from the contract. It was somewhere along the lines of between 12 to 15 million. And at the end of the month, I got my salary. No bonus, no my salary. And that sort of triggered something in my head that, man, if I could do this for somebody else, I need to be able to do this for myself.
Yeah.
And that was the real catalyst in getting me into choosing to run my own business. It's been a crazy journey since, but I mean, I've worked with some of the top businesses, top companies, and top artists in Trinidad and Tobago. One of my first jobs was to manage First Citizens Bank, their staff celebration. I can't remember what it is, but it was a staff convention. Yes, staff convention. And I used to say that me and my team at that point were forces without guidance, because we made some kind of money from that, and we did not spend it wisely at all. I mean, sure, I bought some equipment, but we made some heavily bad investments. Then West Indies Cricket bought an award show, and we had to manage the media for that. Again, some money, spend it badly. And then we had a TV show on Synergy, got some money, spent it badly. And it was a cycle over and over and over until I really got a proper mentor, right, who started to show me how to really, deal with money and how to manage your business and all these different things. So it's been a journey. I can't work for somebody anymore.
Why? Why is that?
Granted, well, one, I don't really like to wear clothes when I'm working. Let me start with that. But other than that, there is maybe it's a bit of arrogance, but there is a sense of satisfaction that I get from, especially in my line of work, when it comes to creating campaigns or messages or branding or anything like that. There's a lot of things that still stand today that would have come from my mind. For example, Cancer Society, I think up to recently, they still use the phrase "Stand for Hope, Walk for Life." I said that.
Right.
I give them that slogan, and Republic Bank was impressed, whoever was impressed, etc., and they still go with that to this day. So there is no greater feeling than knowing that didn't come through a company. You did that, right? And when I see music videos that I would have probably done for Marshall, I mean, I worked with Miss Lauryn Hill for when she was launching a clothing line for her 20th anniversary of her album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. That you can't get up. Like, I don't think you could get something like that when you are stuck within the confines of the corporate world, the 8 to 4.
And when you're when you're the employee as opposed to when you were the boss, right?
Work has taken me as far as Germany, traveling for work. So it's been an amazing journey. It's been very tough. There are so many things we could get into. Masculinity and mental issues as a male. I'm gonna
get there. I want to pull in Ross now and ask Ross just to talk about entrepreneurship for him as a man, what that meant. And then Daddy, I'm gonna ask you that question too, because you have been self-employed my entire life. Yes, Ross, go ahead.
For me, it was a little bit different. Again, coming out of the environment that I came out from, I had to figure out how to make some money. So whether you're living in Miaro and you're pulling seine in the morning on weekends and then you're going and sell your fish, your one fish that you get in the junction, plus you're getting to pay a little $100 for pulling seine for the day, or whether you're going and make crab trap out of bamboo, push it down in some hole in the mangrove and get some crab, sell a string of crab in Miaro Junction, or whether some of them beach houses when people come for the weekend and they leave, you go and you do a little cleanup and you hustle and you make a little money. But when I really start to get bright was when I moved by my grandmother in Rio Clara and my uncle, Emmanuel Gilbert. My granduncle was a guy from Point Fortin named Mackie John. Why he important? Because that is the man who bring pool table and jukebox to Trinidad and Tobago, a Grenadian. So that was my father's uncle. So all the jukebox and pool table throughout the whole of Trinidad and Tobago came from that one man. So my uncle, which is my grandmother's son, which is my father's brother, Mackie John was my grandmother's brother. So my uncle and them was on the maintenance side of the jukebox business, jukebox, pool table, and video games. And so I understood that whole business. And then within that now, I started to go to these video game places in Princestown, and I noticed that. So this was my first hustle. It was a hustle. I noticed that they were using Canadian quarters as the tool to play the video game. And me with my bright self realized a Canadian quarter was actually worth $1 TT. But they were selling it for 50 cents to play a video game. But these poor children didn't know what they was buying. And I basically, bit by bit, bought all the people and them quarters and sold it to Scotiabank next door. So the man had to go into regular token for playing video game, the brown one that
That everybody knows now, yeah.
So that was my first hustle. My next hustle was Maxi Taxi was tonguing out hard music. They're paying $40 for a cassette. Dr. Hyde and KMC and Papa Rocky and all the rest of them. And every Maxi wanted to have the baddest tape that was out, IRS Song Research, Howie T. the Hitman and all the rest of them. JD's Exclusive used to sell blank cassette tapes for $3. A Maxi buying a cassette for $40. My uncle had them double cassette player in Rio Claro. And I used to buy blank tape for $3, go home and dub them and come and sell the Maxi for $25, undercutting who was selling for $40. Money. Money like whoa. Right? I had a penchant for always liking jewelry, so hence the reason why I bought so much jewelry that I was looking like if I was selling things. Right? And always was like that. Again, one of the things that kept me out of business for a long time, and I'm saying kept me out of business, is because I made a lot of money in my job. I'm talking about at the age of 21, fresh out of university, working for BJ Services International as an associate engineer, I'm making average $20K as a 20-year-old.
That's a lot of money
5
at that
years
point in
later,
time.
Yeah, 21 years old, which means that is 1995. Sorry, 96 is when I finished UWI. So 1996, 20K. By the time I get to the year 2000, 60K as a youth. So there's no way that you're gonna. I had a foreign news car business before everybody was bringing foreign news. I used to bring in one foreign news, one before Bix and them was Bix, and I never even bothered with it because my salary was so much that I didn't need to do nothing else, and that kept me away from business for a long time, and it continued to keep me away from business up till I was 40 something years old, because at this point in the oil field, your salary just growing exponentially to ridiculous, crazy numbers that I refuse to even mention on it. But at some point in time, I think what kind of bring me back down was in 24, well, after my divorce. After the divorce, I realized, but wait now, you just give away half of everything you saved, Jen. So what this whole thing was about. And that kind of bring me back to a center where I realized that money is not just for making and stacking, but also for enjoying. And then 2 years after the divorce, my son came to live with me. And I realized, wait now, you can't continue running to the Middle East and Africa and spending months and months. You can't do that. You have to do something different. So I'm stuck here with a stack of cash. Don't want to work in a job again because I want to stay with my son. I had to figure out, okay, how to invest this money. Now, by the way, meanwhile, during all those years, since 1992, I've been living on the stock market and making coin. So that was already my side gig, really understanding, learning the stock market, spending oodles amount of hours on it. Losing, making, but mostly making plenty. And so I had to figure out, okay, let me get into business with the cash that I have and spend more time home with my kids. So that made me end up coming to Trinidad every fortnight because I wanted to see my daughter more often as well at this point in time. So I was trying to balance these two children and kind of being there for them as opposed to working hard and just stacking money. And it's a never ending process of just going, working, come back, spend 2 weeks. Go, work, spend 3 months in the Sahara Desert, come back, spend 2 weeks. And so the thing was going. So that launched me into business and into really and truly trying to figure out how to take the capital they have and deploy it for it to work for you instead of going to work for people. So, and that moved me into consulting as opposed to working.
Right. Now, Daddy, you would have made the decision fairly young, in your 20s, if I'm not mistaken, to become an
Yes.
entrepreneur. Because based on the story that Mommy gave me, because I mean there was a point in time I hold Mommy in a talk and I ask her how all your meet, ting. So I know all of your business now, right? Just letting you know, putting you on the spot there, Daddy. I know. And at first you were working with a printry. That I remember. And so then, how did you make that transition from getting a salary to becoming a businessman, running your own home construction, home improvement business?
It was that simple. I had some friends who were joiners, carpenters, and at that time, of course, as you just said, I was in printing. I was at the top of my game in printing as an employee. I became a supervisor of. I'll make a reference to. I used to print the sugar worker paper for Panday and George Weeks and them.
I remember that.
Interestingly, that Pandey used to come and sit twice a month in front of me that we discuss how we laying out the paper. However, um, while doing that, I was doing some church work or missionary work on the side, and I had a few friends who were joiners and carpenters. The Santa Rosa housing project was now in full swing. That would be in the late 70s, 80s. And I used to meet with them on evenings and wait on them to go out and preach and things. And looking at what they did, and I'm like, this looks simple. I think I could do this. One day, there were some problems that was developing with me and my print shop. I threatened to unionize the workers, and because I saw the tension with the employees and management, and I was trying to be helpful or useful as a supervisor, and they pretty much told me that if I tried to unionize the shop, that I would be at risk for losing my job. So that didn't go over well with me. I don't like to be intimidated. So with the tension that was happening at work and the friends that I had, I casually told them one day, I said, why don't you all get a contract for me? And they said, you sure? I said, yeah, just get me a contract and you all will help me and we'll see how it goes. And they got me a contract. Bought some tools, got started, and the miracle in this is that within 6 months, I was hiring these guys to work for me. I just took off. Doing jobs on the side and thing. And it was, I would call it was a natural. I liked my work, and I had a lot of natural ability that just came to the surface. And within 6 months, I had a workshop. I was hiring these guys. Within a year or two, I bought a whole outfit of woodworking tools and became a manufacturer. I started manufacturing furniture for Sears and a few other places, and building things, of course, like custom built things. So that's the early embryonic stages and how I mushroomed into the housing market, home improvements or furnishings, and that's the short story.
Why did you? Because let me ask the question properly. Entrepreneurship is not easy. It's not for the faint-hearted. I think all of you here can attest to that. Why stick with it as opposed to doing something that is that's safer? That's where the salary is guaranteed.
Um, I am a risk taker, as Ross is kind of like all you guys are risk takers. I bet on myself. I will bet on myself any day. But the other thing is, there are two things that I really love in terms of entrepreneurship. I love people. I love working with people. I like listening to people as a consultant and delivering a product that they would be happy to pay for. And I like working with my hands. I literally like working with my hands. If Rhoda will tell you guys, I built us some furniture.
I still have it.
Um, right. Okay. Out of teak and thing, I built us, beds and libraries and dead desks. I love the work that I do. I love to see the products that I could build and change a room, change a person's life. And equally important is the satisfaction that I get in delivering a product that my customers are happy with. So I love people, I love serving people, and I love the work that I do.
All
I,
right.
I still do. I do the same thing up to now.
Yeah. And so I want to shift the conversation a little bit to the direction that Jay was raising there. As men, you have a different personality, different type of personality to me and other females, right? And one of the stereotypes that we have where men are concerned is that men don't really like to talk about their feelings, and men don't really go about expressing their feelings, and men are not really that great about getting in touch with certain aspects of themselves. Ross, do you think that applies to you? Do you see yourself as somebody who is approachable and who's very good at talking about feelings and identifying, where how they feel and why they feel about the things? And I'm asking this too, especially since you are raising a daughter.
Yeah, I think in that regard, so as you yourself indicated, it's hard to figure out what kind of fella I am, right? But I am all kind of different things, including I know how to get in touch with my feelings, and I do have a problem expressing how I feel. I'm a very deep thinker. I spend a lot of time just thinking about things and things I've done and things I've said and things that were said to me or done to me. So I am very careful, especially sometimes when it comes to relating to a daughter, how to tread. So I will gather myself, especially when it's a serious matter to discuss, and go deal with it. And at the same time, then I had to deal with it with my son. That's a totally different 360-degree way of dealing with it with him.
Yeah.
So even with respect to me, I am. People just look at me and feel that I real hardcore, which probably I really am, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I am certain that I have a certain ratio of estrogen to testosterone. Is not 100% testosterone. I don't think such a person does in fact exist. You know, expressing myself and how I feel about things. And as you yourself realize from me, I will talk raw and I will say everything about what happened with me with my mother. I don't sweat things. It is just what it is because all of we go in the same place by the time before we get to 100. So
Daddy,
it's nothing.
you have 6 daughters and a son.
Yep.
Wow.
And yeah. My father is quite prolific, but is
And,
not
and
as
between yesterday and today, I saw them all.
yes. 6 daughters and several grandchildren, and I mean I'm the eldest, and a lot of people constantly ask me, what are my parents like, right? Because they want to know who exactly created the particular beast that they meet from time to time. So, what, in terms of your parenting approach, what was different about how you'd go about parenting your girls versus how you parented your son?
Hmm. Um, Great question, though. And you must know that that's a big and deep question. Um, but parenting is the kind of of is the kind of thing that grows with you as you grow. And in my case, all of my kids, if I ask any or all of you to write a page or a paragraph of who I am, and you all pass it around to each other, each of you will be asking, who are you talking about? Because you were not raised by the same man. You were raised, well, the same man, but different father at different times. Why? We grow, we mature, we evolve, we change. And you are the first, and Michelle is the last. And if you all compare notes, you all will be talking about literally two different people.
No, it's the truth,
Because
because she and I have compared notes, right? And I
yes,
feel I feel like when I'm talking about you, she's like, really? And I'm like, yes, he used to do those things. He doesn't do that anymore. And it's a different person she's talking about when she's telling me about you.
so no one child in a family is raised by the same parent. Why? We connect and we communicate with them differently. I would use this statement. I like we love you all equally but differently, and we all struggle. Now there is something that Ross said that I would just like to tap into, just by the way. In this thing about getting in touch with one another's feelings, um, that's a difficult thing. Now, I think you were asking him, or you did ask him, um, about how 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 do we if you could remind me of the question that you were
How
asking him.
would he? I guess how does he manage it? Because he has a daughter. He's raising a daughter. He's raising a son. So whether or not he has to tap into different sides of himself because he's raising two different gender children.
Right, that was a part of the question, but the part I want to hinge on to here quickly is the part where um, we and our feelings, the men, the father, and our feelings. How do we deal with that stuff? How do we try to balance off the tension of what we feel? And I would say that the element of safety, we men are big on the element of safety. I think all people are. If we don't feel safe, we are not going to become vulnerable and transparent. And we are going to hold that in because we feel endangered, we feel at risk. It seems as though that women, they are more easily able to get past that barrier. They could speak freely and openly about their feelings. Men, not so much. We guard that very, 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 very highly. We want to share our feelings. We want to express our feelings, but we don't feel safe in certain environments, and we're not going to do that. I remember Ross saying in the beginning of the conversation that he wants a woman who is like his mother. I understand that. I totally understand it.
What do you
What he is
understand
speaking,
about that? Yeah. What?
right? What he is saying is he wants to feel safety. He wants to feel safe, that he can speak, he can open up, he can talk about his weaknesses, he could talk about his inadequacies, he could talk about his not performing well or whatever, and it does not come back to him like a negative. But it is encouraged, it is reinforced, not encouraged to be weak, but encouraged. He is encouraged, he is reinforced, empowered to be a better man. And our parents did a good job of that as to why a man or a woman will want the parent virtues in the mates that we have that could help to empower us to help us become more and better. The reason for that, though, is that parents could bring you up to a certain position or place in maturity. And the reason we have to leave and cleave is that the adult relationships that we form, those are the people, the man or the woman that we share an adult relationship with, as say a spouse. Those are the people that move us to the next level of maturity. The problem with that is that person may be looking for somebody to 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 fill the deficit of their parent issues. And that's the tension right there. In other words, I am looking for a certain kind of woman, but that certain kind of woman is looking for a certain kind of man. Am I that man? And it takes 6 months, a year, 2 years to find out I got the woman I might be looking for in her. She did not get the man she wants in me. So she is accusing me of having changed. I did not change. I just I just showed up into who I really am. You know. So it's being the right person, attracting the right person. That is where you get into the business of properly paired up.
Jay,
Yes,
you're the youngest in the room.
I am.
Yeah. And there's this conversation here about feelings and safety and nurturing. And you did make a point early on when you were talking about the type of woman you were looking for. And it seems to kind of tap into or feed into some of what is being said here. Because you talk about
Absolutely.
wanting your relationship life, your personal life, to be stable. Everything else could be
rocky.
could be rocky, but that has to be stable. How much of what these two gentlemen have said here kind of feeds into or doesn't feed into your thoughts on relationships, emotions, and stability?
Well, I would say this, right? This book, The Myth of Male Power, makes an interesting quote, right? It says, "A man's greatest weakness is his facade of strength, and a woman's greatest strength is a facade of weakness," right? I have always been kind of self-aware, doing a lot of reflecting a lot of times. And I remember in my early stages of life, I genuinely believed that emotions was a form of weakness, honestly, 100%. And I say that because I remember every time talking about my feelings to anybody as a young man, I would always have been pushed in the direction of, well, fix it. I would have never gotten a chance to purely complain or purely just wallow in the fact that I do not have an answer for what it is I'm complaining about right now. Now go fix it. Do something about it. That do something about it narrative was introduced to me very early in life. Not just from parents or family members, but just everybody. Right? And again, I genuinely believe that at some point, sharing your feelings was a form of weakness. So in my teenage years, I was very distant, removed, and indifferent in a lot of situations. I would have always gone for the facts and not take on anybody's emotions seriously. And it was only until I had an interesting experience in like Form 4 or something, where I guess the girl that I was interested in at the time wanted me to go church camp with her or something. And everybody in that church camp thought like I had a problem because I wasn't talking to anybody. My facial expression was straight, etc., etc. And from observing then, I started to realize that the reason why these people are questioning me so much is because they can't read me. And I started to think, how many more people have misinterpreted who I am because I don't show any kind of vulnerability. Now, obviously, that didn't happen overnight. It didn't just come into being just like that. But throughout life, I have learned to easily express my feelings. No, that doesn't say that I'm going to give it to just any and everybody, because every man has experienced a woman throwing back his weaknesses in his face. I'm sorry, I will say that without apology, that sometimes you confide in somebody and express something and they use it back at you. It doesn't happen all the time, but it has happened to me definitely. And it you have to feel your raw thoughts, your raw unfiltered thoughts that might not make any sense, that some men might think comes across feminine and all these different things. It's it's a lot because in society, I feel like men are either have this role where we are guilty until proven innocent,
Okay.
and that as well could be kind of exhausting.
So let me ask you this. How can a woman, whether this is an interpersonal relationship or not, right? How or what can a woman do to make you feel, I guess, secure, safe, confident with her or around her?
Well, okay, I for a very long time, and a couple not so good relationships left me feeling at a point in time that I was more useful than loved.
Right.
Right? I was more useful. Like I was resourceful. I could have done this. I was a problem solver, a risk taker. I could have figured things out pretty easily. Quick thinker. But there was one woman in particular who entered my life and made me feel like I did not have to do anything to receive her love. I felt like I didn't have to give money. I didn't have to give anything material. I didn't have to have a particular skill set because again, she had her stuff in order. She was interested in me for me. And in that situation, I felt like I could have just, I felt like I wanted to run to her to just say anything. Hey, I just thought about this. What's your opinion on that? Etc. Etc. Because even if I expressed that I did not have the answer for a particular problem, she wouldn't say something like, oh, well, go and figure it out. You know, as a man, she could be like, that's okay. You usually have the answer all the time, but if you don't, that's fine too. She never made me feel like if I had to uphold a hyper masculine, because there are situations where, like, if you come through in any kind of weakness, sometimes that even appears unattractive to some women. Any kind of dip in this masculine wall could come across as unattractive to some women at times. And with her, it was never an issue. Never an issue. And I could see where in that situation, but you know, unfortunately, we don't live in the same country, and that caused a lot of complications, and worse yet with COVID-19. So, but yeah, that situation is where I think I could feel safe.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Daddy, I want to throw the question back at you now. What would make you feel safe or confident around a woman?
You know, Jay made a really important point, and I would like to validate it. I think love, when you understand and define love, love is about the other person. And as he was saying, and I like it, you have to love me for me. But if you have to love me for me, you have to know me to love me for me. I cannot feel as though it is basically a performance orientation, that I am used, and when you are used to a certain point, then you become abused, and then you are just good as a napkin you use and throw away. But rather, loving me for me will communicate that I don't have to live under the cloud of or the acts of performance. Because we all fail in some way or the other. We all fail in some way or the other. We are flawed in some form or the other. And it is in relationships where we can be our real selves, and we feel that sense of safety, and I would stay with that word. We feel a sense of safety that I am loved for who I am, not for what I have or what I could do for you. I think that's the relationship that a man will totally pour himself out. It's that kind of love that is very self-sacrificing for. Um, so I would concur with Jay at this point, that the person that loves us for who we are, in spite of, regardless of, and we use the term come what may. When may comes, you are still there and in my corner. I could return that love. I could return that sense of commitment. So love is a very, very performing attribute. It performs. Love me for me. I would reciprocate. Love you for you, and I serve you, and you serve me, and that's the way it works.
Ross,
That's it.
what are your thoughts? I mean, what would make you feel safe?
So let me answer the question that I saw one of the people online post there, and people sending messages in my WhatsApp to ask me the question and tell me to answer it. How can a red woman make a man feel safe and wanted?
I know they're
My
harassing you because
response,
you put up a lot of posts about that.
my response, safe nothing.
I saw the safe nothing comment there. but
Anyway,
yes.
but for me, I mean, I don't really have nothing to hang up about anything about feeling safe and feeling wanted and all of that stuff, you know. What happened is I've been through enough hills and valleys to the point where I real comfortable in myself. To the point where it's almost like, and I want to draw an analogy, and it might be wrong to do so, but I'll do it. It's like a puzzle, you know, them little where you're putting the little pieces together, and it's like my puzzle almost complete except for a little few pieces. And once somebody fill in those two extra pieces and bring to the table the things that I had exposed earlier, the fact that I could trust you, that you're a little more patient, and like Daddy Barrett intellectually put it, basically that nurturing, motherly, emotional figure to make a man feel that he could say anything to her. And just like Jay, and I mean, we're all probably saying the same thing, that there's no blowback to showing that emotional side. As opposed to men out on the street who feel that they have to be a man 24 hours a day, and being a man means acting and reacting a certain type of way. For me, I have no qualms about anything at all. I am very, very pliable and flexible when it comes to my emotions. I'm not as rigid as I may appear to be. And again, it comes from that situation, my life situation with my mother, comes from my life situation with all my aunts and the amount of female figures it had in my orbit. My grandmother in Miaro, Amy Dyer, my grandfather's wife, Selena Ross. It's a different type of environment I came from, with many strong women, many women. So I was always very pliable and flexible, and I wasn't 100% manly. And growing up in country, it's a different vibe to growing up in that country life in Rio Claro, Miara, and all that sort of stuff.
I'm gonna
So
flip the question around now, and I'm starting with you, then Jay, and then I'm gonna end with my dad. So this is gonna be the final question this evening, right? So the question I would ask before is, what will women have to do to make you feel safe? So I'm gonna ask you now, the reverse. What do you think you as a man? What do you think you need to do to make women feel safe and confident and secure?
well, I'll speak without knowing the full extent of what a woman really wants. But at the same time, once you say the word safe,
Yeah.
it means safe to be able to express yourself. Safe in terms of emotional safety, in terms of physical safety, in terms of knowing that somebody have your back, so to speak, you know? And I think if a guy could provide those things, I think he would have the safety portion covered. And I'm just using it because, again, probably as a male, I tend to look for definitions and not an emotional definition, but more of a definition.
Right.
And if a woman is speaking about safety, it would have to do from the perspective of the world we live in, whether it be financial safety, which in itself is another form of safety in itself. But as a guy, you want to be able to complete that person just the same way that you would like them to complete you.
Okay. Jay.
Yeah, this is it's almost a very nuanced. Like, you have to have an answer that's very nuanced. Now, for me, firstly, I have a my Sifu would have told me which my comfort teacher said, love is the active concern for the growth and well-being of the object of your affection, right? And I genuinely believe that that active concern, right, is it comes in different ways for, as Mr. Ross was saying, it comes in different ways for everybody. There are some women who come to you, and because of whatever they experience in life, the bare minimum of common decency sometimes is enough, which is unfortunate, but sometimes that happens. Sometimes I see women accepting like some very low standards because you mightn't hit them, or you know what I mean. It's very interesting, that question, because that brings about all the things that women experience in society. Like, so for me, if I am to answer that question as short as possible, not for life to go on, I would have this woman feel like she has her autonomy as an individual, that she's in a space where she's not going to be judged for anything, especially based on patriarchal standards. I would like her to feel that she has nothing to worry about, that I make sure that nobody ever gets any opportunity to disrespect the person that I am with. Absolutely, because loyalty is really what happens when the person is not looking. You know what I mean? And critically, I would also make sure that I am a proper listener and I observe that the person that I'm with, because not all the time somebody comes to you to vent, they want an answer. You don't always have to fix. Sometimes you just need to listen and agree. Because everything that a woman experiences out the door, you see, when she comes in the door, she needs to be able to completely let everything down in your presence. All her guards, all the facades that she has to put up to survive in a, whether it be a male dominated field or whatever it is she might have experienced on the road. There are some things that as a man I would not experience, so I will also not understand. So at that point, I need to put on the cap of listener and learner. So it's very nuanced. It's a lot to do with the person that you're with, but in general, I would say, if I had to sum it up, you create a space where this woman could completely drop her guard outside of all the ills that she faces in society. And with you, she has her autonomy, her independence, and a genuine concern for her growth and well being.
Daddy.
Good, well said, well said. Yeah, Rhoda, I hope you know that you're asking some big and deep and wide questions. However, in listening to the other two guests, I will add an angle and dimension like this. Um, we human beings are created in three dimensions. We are 3D. We are body, soul, and spirit. And the soul is the part of which I will appeal to now. And the soul has three basic needs, as complex as it is. The soul has three basic needs. When those three needs are met and sincerely met, and a woman sees that a man is addressing her at a soul level, and the soul has these three basic needs. One is a need for love. Whatever her definition of love is, coming from her parents of origin or family of origin, whatever that definition of love is, this man has to understand that definition of love and try to reach it, meet it, reach out to her. So the soul has this need for love. The soul has this need for significance. A woman needs to feel significant with the man of her life, with the man that she will partner with. When she feels significance, when he is able to elevate her and give her a proper self-esteem, elevate her in life, she would love that. She would latch onto that. The other one, and we spoke about it in the safety word. We all have a basic need for security. When a woman feels secure in a man's life and a man's company, she gets the runway to become the best person that she could be. He helps her become the best that she could be. And the way this works is that the better she becomes is the more she loves him for becoming who she is. And the more she becomes is the more she is able to deposit in his bank, that he becomes more than she got married to him in the first case. So what happens in a relationship like this, where the soul needs of love, security, and significance are addressed is that in years and in time, the people become more in love with each other because they evolve into better human beings with their needs having been met.
Can
Gentlemen,
I say one? Can I say one thing?
sure, G.
Go- going off what Mr. Barath was saying, I've also learned. Now there is always this argument about submission this and submission that, right? I have learned that another thing, especially what Mr. Barath was saying, you see, when you address those matters of the spirit, I think that when as a man you have a grasp on who you are and you show at least you have the capability to lead, not dominate, but to lead, I think that also is something that would cause a woman to tap into more of her femininity. Because as I was talking to a friend the other day, she's telling me that most of her and her female friends have to take very masculine roles because they have to do everything. But sometimes when somebody enters their life that they could trust and they know that things will be taken care of in a certain capacity, then they're like, okay, I could open up and actually tap into that feminine side. So I also think that the ability to show some kind of leadership and control of your own life, at least on that level, and really let the person know who you are, that's also a gateway to really unlocking the love of that woman.
Gentlemen, this is where I'm going to wrap it up. This has been a great way for me to spend Father's Day. I didn't think I was going to be here this long. I really thought I was just going to be talking for about an hour. But, I mean, often when my father and I get into conversations, it goes on for a really long time. So I can't say that I'm surprised that it ended up being this long once Daddy started talking. So Ross and Jay, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I'm going to say bye to you now, and I'm just going to hold on to my father just for a couple more seconds. All right?
All right, no
Thank you
problem.
very much.
Thank you,
Have a good
thank
day,
you very
everyone.
much for having me on, Rhoda. Appreciate
Not a
it.
problem. It was great to have you on, Jay. We will chat in a bit, all right?
All right, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, Ross.
Breathe.
Hi, Daddy.
Oh, wow, I could breathe. Huh. What a life.
See, it wasn't so bad, Daddy.
No, it's not that. But you told me just be ready for 6:15, whatever podcast. And Teresa was here, and she like, you gotta comb your hair so, and you gotta put on something so, and you gotta shower, and I'm like, gosh, this is changing my life. Anyway, thank you.
No, thank you, Daddy. Thank you.
Thank
Because
you.
I feel it's important for. Okay, so people hear me talk about Mummy often. I've never actually brought Mummy on alive. But people hear me talk about her more often than they'll hear me talk about you. And I feel it's important for people to meet my parents because it helps them to understand me a little bit better.
Yeah.
Right? So when they hear you talk, it will help them to grasp, okay, so that's why she is the way she is. You know.
So who's sorceress?
That's me, Daddy. And that's what I call myself. I call myself sorceress. And that's how I spell it.
Is that like a trade name? Is that like a
It's
market
not like
name?
it's not a branded name, but okay, so here in Trinidad right now, source is like slang for information, right? And I tend to have lots of information, so I always have the source.
Okay, okay.
All right, so I'm the sorceress. All right, so I'm gonna log
If
off.
Michelle is there, she want to say
Oh,
hello.
let her come and say hello. Come, Michelle. Come on to the camera, folks. This is my baby sister. Like my absolute baby sister. You're on the live right now. You're on the live right now, so I'm telling it. So like everybody's seeing you, Michelle. Everybody is seeing you.
Lovely.
All right. So hi, how you doing? Love?
Hello. Good. I was just seeing if you and Dad were done.
Yeah,
I was gonna start.
we're done. We're wrapped up now. All right.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear. No, this is nice. This
All
is
right, Daddy.
great.
Bye. Have a good evening.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay. Okay, folks. So that was it. Men and masculinities. And you had the opportunity to meet the male half of me. So the person, the guy, the man, the gentleman who is partly responsible for me being here in this space on this earth. I hope you all enjoyed it. I was hoping that the conversation would get to be as interesting as it was when we had the ladies on. And I think we hit some really, really, really nice points with the conversation. So you all have yourselves a great evening, and I will see you on Wednesday. Yeah.
Hey, you! Come here! Hey! Yeah, yeah, you! Hey!